Hi there, this is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about this week's concept called the trouble with iron. Now, where this idea starts and comes from is I'm reading a book by Professor Preston Estep from Harvard Medical School, who is one of the chief researchers in their human longevity section. And I'm going to start with introducing two concepts that he talks about. The first is mind span. That's different, or brain span. You want your brain to live longer than your body. So talking about lifespan is an abstract idea if your brain doesn't last as long. And really that's a way of saying who gets dementia. We all say we want to live longer. You want to live to 100, but what happens if you get dementia at 78? Not attractive. And as things stand right now, about 50% of Americans are developing Alzheimer's. And Dr. Estep points out that one of our primary strategies for avoiding Alzheimer's is we think that Alzheimer's is a type 3 diabetes, a disease of too much insulin intolerance, partially brought out by our obesity and our being overweight. That's partially true, but there's maybe some complicating features. And one of those complicating features is the second concept, which is what he calls antagonistic pleiotropy. Antagonistic pleiotropy means, it's not a complicated concept, but it means what's good for you at one age may not be good for you later. Your genes may not change, but your environment may change. And the best example is iron metabolism. A young woman, age 20, may look forward in America to having 2 babies. That was something in that average, 2.1 in the United States. Various populations have more or less. But 100 years ago, we were having 4 and 5 babies. And through much of human history, women got pregnant every year or two. At which point there was a huge demand for iron on their bodies. So we are designed as a human species to absorb a ton of iron. And women, when they are menstruating and having babies, need a ton of iron. What happens when they go through menopause and stop making babies and stop having periods? Suddenly they accumulate iron. What happens to men who never have babies and never go through menstruation? Accumulating iron all their lives might be why men live 10 years less than women. Now, isn't that an interesting set of concepts? And what if I told you that we're pretty certain that a high blood iron in the form of ferritin has been shown to accumulate in your pancreas gland and your islet cells and leads to diabetes? What if I told you that the reason steak is so insulinogenic, a big steak is insulinogenic, it makes you secrete insulin, doesn't have any carbs in it. Why is it secreting insulin? I always thought it's because you broke down a whole bunch of amino acids that turned into glucose. Not so. It's the complicating effect of all the heme in steak. What happens if I told you that Alzheimer's disease happened mostly because your brain was desperately trying to protect itself and to excrete iron, exporting excess iron from itself? And that the leftover proteins from that are what we call beta amyloid plaques. Well, they're just leftovers from your brain trying to protect itself. Well, I'm actually going to explore those ideas. I want to learn this myself in detail, so I'm going to be reviewing them in coming weeks. So watch this blog next week. For now, what would I want you to do? I want you to know your ferritin. You don't want a ferritin of 80. You want a ferritin of 20. Ferritin is your serum's form of storage iron. You should know your ferritin. Get it tested. And if you're taking iron today, stop. Because most men are probably 2 and 3 and 400. Most menopausal women are 150 or and above. And if you're not there, you're lucky. And while you're at it, call up the Red Cross and give them a unit. Get rid of some of that excess iron, because in the next weeks I'm going to tell you why. So this is Dr. John Whitcomb introducing a whole new idea for which we are very grateful to Preston Estep.